Today, we are going to have a couple of hours of intensive work together, but it's about still social innovation, but we will dive into it thanks to a dynamic moment that we will propose in minutes in 2 rounds. The first one, let's say, will be an opportunity to share some ideas around this ongoing process. And the second, with Professor Matteo Zallio, we will do some co-design together. So it's a generative process that we are going to deploy. Said that, I turn, let's say, the word to Shine, to Europe. So over to Miriam, please.
Hi, Oscar. Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for this introduction. Hope you are all having a lovely morning, Friday morning. So I have the honor to give the first presentation. Let me just start sharing my screen of today. And actually one of the few presentations, because as we said to you, we want to, or as Oscar said, we want to keep it as interactive as possible. Let me just switch so you see. Can just someone confirm you see it's full screen? Yes. Okay. I see a thumbs up from Oscar. Thank you.
We can see the second. We can see the second screen, Miriam.
The second.
The presenter screen. Sorry. Okay. Yeah.
Now?
Yes.
Now,
yes. Now it's working.
Okay. Okay. So I thank you. I did the wrong one. So what I will just do very briefly, introduction to SIRENE. I'm almost sure that most of you know about the project, but just in case, just to create the context, and in case it's the first time that you are joining this meeting, this is the second one. So why are we all here? And we wanted to, because we have a shared goal, of course. We believe in the creation of smart, healthy, age-friendly environments. And we know that to do this is only possible by having all relevant stakeholders, all relevant actors working together. And unfortunately, what we see, what we experience, and we see also from surveys, is that that's not happening, that most of the time, the innovation happens in silos. And we don't have, for example, we see an underrepresentation of the private sector in the ecosystems, in the social innovation actions. So we want to create, or we want to facilitate, to empower the stakeholders, support the ecosystem, support knowledge exchange between ecosystems. And if you are here, it's because you are an expert in one of the relevant topics for SHAFE, and because you share this goal with us. So I don't know why my mouse is not working. So this is, as you know, the aim of the SIRENE project is to support the growth of social innovation actors in eco-friendly and sustainable community-based services for SHAFE implementation in Europe. And why we are here is mainly to focus on this objective 2, that is to create and promote a co-creation network of experts and local ecosystems. And then, of course, we also have our other objectives to promote social innovation implementation. And we don't want to stop here. We don't want an action to just finish with the project. So we want to develop a sustainability strategy, and we want to do this together. We have the core partners of the project, all represented here today: Shine Academy, ECH Alliance, F6S, ISRA, and Technalia. We want to do this with you. So what I want to tell you now very briefly is what we have done so far. We are now at month 6 of the project. What are we going to do today, and what are the next steps? So you know where we stand in this process. And when we talk about social innovation framework, what we propose, what we aim to do with this project is to create a social innovation framework with 5 main components: a manual for innovation actors, an hands-on toolkit, a capacity building framework, sustainability strategy, and blueprints of good practices. And today, you will see, we will discuss some of these components in more detail because they are more mature at this moment, and some more in an ideation phase. And supporting or making it more concrete is for this social innovation framework, we have two digital tools: the repository, as the name indicates, you can imagine not database, but a repository, I cannot say other way, of useful resources in this topic, and a SIRENE Hub to facilitate the communication exchange between experts and so on. So what have we done, and what are we going to do today? In this first 6 months, we analyzed the state of the art of social innovation. So what are the innovation models out there? What is being used? Of course, we are all, I think, familiar with the credible Helix, for example, of innovation, but we went a step further, and the next presentation by my colleague Dirtia from Academy will focus on this topic, and she has very interesting questions to ask you, and where we propose this transnational local sphere model of innovation. So that will be the topic of the next presentation. Then we are here for the co-creation of the social innovation framework. So there will be a session by Matteo Zallio in the second part of this session, where we will all discuss in groups first and then plenary how to build and how to involve stakeholders in the building of the social innovation framework. Then another one of the breakout sessions will be on the conceptualizing of the social innovation framework. So I told you about these 5 components, but of course these 5 components happen in a context, in a social context, in an economic context. So we will discuss this. We will discuss what are the needs for the components. So we will focus on the social innovation framework. And then there will be a session. As I said, there are some components that are more mature. The manual for innovation actors is the first one that we are working. There will be a breakout session focused on these components, and this breakout session will be led by Academy as well. Just to let you know, the previous one, the conceptualizing of the social innovation framework, will be led by me and Oscar Zanuto from ISRA. And then, my mouse is really having problems today. We will have another breakout session focus on the digital tools, the hub that is led by Shine, that will be represented by my colleague Luis Diaz, that you probably most likely received an email today with the credentials and then you can try on the hub and provide us your initial feedback, and the repository that is led by Technalia, where they will gather your input, your ideas for the structure, for the design of the repository, because we want, and that is the core, that to do tools that are usable and that are interesting for you, of course, or for us, for all of us. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense to develop this. And just another point, of course, in the first 6 months of the project that had a lot of attention is you creating our material, our visual material, and you have the website of the project where we will keep it up to date. And there are already the profiles of each expert with pictures, with information you gave us. You have it there for your information. And the next steps, what are we going to do in the upcoming months? We have the first round of the validation of the social innovation framework. This will be an iterative process. We are preparing the first iteration. We will kick off the capacity building activities. Very soon you will receive an email about our first science cafe that is being prepared, organized. And we will do the launch of the first version of the digital tools, the repository and the hub. And just to finalize, so now we have this group of experts. You are all here. We are also launching next week these open calls. So if you have colleagues that you think that should join us in this effort, that share the same goal, please share with them. We will share it in our social media, in our website, this open call for experts. Just need to write your profile. Why do you want to join? And we will consider and getting an email. And that's it for me today. So I pass the floor to dear Chair.
Thank you, Miriam. And let me share my screen. All right, everyone can see it? Okay, good. Okay, so hi everyone. I will give you an overview of the results of D1.1. This deliverable is a desk research on the state-of-the-art methods, standards, and guidelines for the development of responsive, eco-friendly environments. So the goal of this report was to provide a solid theoretical background on which we can build the SIRENE framework. So these are the topics I will be discussing, starting with a short description of the existing Helix frameworks and an explanation of the model that we chose for SIRENE. Then I will discuss the ethical assessments, then the gap analysis, and lastly, the conclusions and recommendations for the creation of the framework. So to start with the Helix frameworks. The triple Helix framework, it was developed in 1995. It forms a framework for institutional connections between the state, academia, and the industry, through which it allows for the existence of an innovative environment that is encouraged but not controlled by the government. Then the quadruple Helix framework was developed in 2009 and incorporates the influence of the media and the public on political decision-making. It covers concepts like culture, value, lifestyle, arts, and creative industries. The quintuple Helix framework was developed in 2010 by the same authors. They add the environment as a fifth helix. In this model, the environment is regarded as a driver for knowledge production and innovation, in that investment in sustainable development will create economic opportunities. The pentahelix framework, it was constructed in 2020 because of the need for a multi-stakeholder approach in smart city policies. This model emphasizes the role that individuals and organizations play in connecting the other four helices of the framework. And lastly, the neo-triple helix framework, developed in 2022. This one integrates the triple, quadruple, and quintuple models, but a bit in a different way. So it emphasizes the interactions between agents and agency structures and is aimed to enable concepts like sustainable innovation, cross-sectoral interactions, transnational spanning, and indirect relations. So the neo-triple helix model, it rethinks the theoretical ground of the other helices and then tries to clarify their interrelations when highlighting the transnational nature of the innovative ecosystems. So for the SIRENE project, we wanted to incorporate interrelations between ecosystems, but also eco-friendly design and sustainability, and citizen-focused replicable development and diversity and choice. So we chose to combine elements of both the pentahelix and the neo-triple helix frameworks. The pentahelix because of its multi-stakeholder approach and its focus on user-centrism, implementation, and replicability. And the neo-triple helix because it incorporates the elements of the quintuple helix framework and therefore also the triple and the quadruple. And because of its emphasis on the role of local ecosystems and its focus on transnational collaboration. So we made a new model called the transnational local sphere model. It puts more focus on stakeholders, organizations, and underrepresented entities. Is user-centered by using a bottom-up approach, includes transnational collaboration, is global by integrating global and local ecosystem, and it involves the civic society through media and the public. So by using the transnational local sphere model, the SIRENE solution will connect all the existing local SI ecosystems and creates a trans-sector network of stakeholders to assure an accessible and sustainable result. So next up is the ethical assessment. The aim of this assessment is to ensure that the social innovation framework takes into account the necessary legal and ethical aspects. Division was made into 3 types of concerns. Data concerns are technological challenges about the use of personal data. And then societal concerns, which revolve around the potential discriminatory effects of appliances or policies. And implementation concerns, which have to do with the implications of implementing smart solutions on a large scale. I would like to highlight 2 issues per topic. First off, data privacy. As we know, all solutions should adhere to the GDPR principles. So any smart device requires the embedding of a security system against unlawful access of personal data. Also, information needs to be available for users about what data is collected and what is it used for. Data surveillance and geosurveillance. Data surveillance happens because of the use of PIIs in systems and services, which stands for personally identifiable information. And geosurveillance is done through, for instance, GPS systems or CCTV cameras or personalized transit cards. So to ensure the privacy of users, the anonymization of this data is necessary. This can, for instance, be done by re-identifying personal data with pseudonyms or through a complete de-identification of data. And then an important issue of societal concerns is technocratic policymaking. This can be defined as the procedure by which all aspects of a city can be measured and monitored and treated as technical problems that can be addressed through technical solutions. So this could happen by prioritizing economic value and by using algorithms to find stakeholders. So when creating an SI ecosystem, it's important to incorporate a multi-stakeholder approach and include civic groups like social entrepreneurs and not to rely on algorithms. Next one, data-driven urbanism, which is the increased use of big data in urban development, which objectifies human actions and then reduces it to numbers. But in reality, big data cannot fully represent the human needs. So in order to create a more inclusive and multi-level smart environment, information from big data systems needs to be complemented with other forms of knowledge, such as smaller surveys. For implementation concerns, guidelines and protocols are needed for the large-scale implementation of smart city solutions. If regulations are not up to date, new technologies could lead to functional errors, communication problems, integration delays, or misuse. So utility services need to be conformed, ICT needs to be scalable, procurement processes should be up to date, and it's necessary to have clarity on who owns the data that's collected by the smart devices and with whom it may be shared. And lastly, autonomous devices. Guidelines are needed about the ethical software programming of devices. A well-known example of this is the self-driving car. If an accident is unavoidable, who or what should it be programmed to crash with? Because there's no right answer for that. So when incorporating autonomous devices into smart buildings, then an evaluation is needed of what choices a device should be allowed to take. The gap analysis. The desk research has pointed out that most initiatives for primary end users are technological solutions for the physical functions, such as safety, comfort, accessibility, health and social care, and smart readiness. But the personal, social, economic functions are underrepresented. This includes issues like the ability to have social contacts or emotional connection to the location, autonomy and control, removing stigmatization, proximity to facilities and employment possibilities, affordability of services, and decision-making authority. Of course, there are many other stakeholders involved as well. This includes relatives and informal carers, health or service providers, local or regional government authorities, the housing sector, construction and installation businesses, real estate agents, energy suppliers, and ICT companies. But there exists a gap between the businesses that are currently involved and the implementation of smart city concepts. So ecosystems are mainly structured by universities and research centers, then in collaboration with public institutional components, but the voice of the private sector is underrepresented. In addition, a substantial percentage of solutions are not exploited, and there seems to be little understanding of the processes involved. There's therefore a need to broaden the base of informal stakeholders to accomplish social transformation, and implement the achieved results. Finally, in research and education, concepts such as health, well-being, accessibility, and convenience are underrepresented in research initiatives. So further research is needed on the impact that smart building technologies have on the lives of occupants and how this can help society as a whole. Education offers need to reflect recent knowledge on inclusive design and accessibility, and more awareness is needed on the importance of these topics. After a review of the standards, guidelines, and methodologies from related projects, it was concluded that responsive environment solutions should be user-centered and expert-driven, with a bottom-up and top-down approach to co-creation workshop with experts, key informants, policymakers, primary end users, and other stakeholders. It should be value-driven instead of market-driven by including a multi-stakeholder approach and a global perspective. But quantitative and qualitative data are necessary to avoid datafication and to ensure a more inclusive and multi-level smart environment. It needs to be accessible to a wide range of people, where technologies and services should be affordable, interoperable, available, understandable, and inclusive. International collaboration between stakeholders is essential. Then ICT should be capable of handling increased networking demands. Regulations should be updated, and implementation should not be hindered by procurement processes. Innovation should be eco-friendly and cost-effective, and financing schemes, quality management, and population density should be considered during the development. And lastly, integrated smart solutions should be made in such a way that they can be reproduced and adapted to different environments and operating systems, and adhere to different policy schemes and territory-specific standards and needs. Right, that was my presentation. Are there any questions? If not, I give the floor back to the others.
Thank you, dear, for your presentation. We're well on time, so I'm going to announce now the invitation for you to the three breakout rooms. The first session of breakout rooms, as anticipated by Miriam, will be focused on three main topics: the social innovation framework in breakout room 1. In breakout room 2, you will be discussing the definition of the manual table of contents. And in breakout room 3, you will be discussing the digital tools, namely the repository and the expert hub. So you can choose the breakout room of your preference. And one thing I would kindly remind the facilitators to please choose a rapporteur for the final delivery of the feedback once we come back to the plenary. And also please keep time under control. We are actually in advance, so but I would please ask you to come back in plenary by 1:10 p.m. So now you shall receive the invitation and have a good session.
So I believe everybody will be back into the main session. In the meantime, Matteo, welcome.
Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here.
Good afternoon.
Great, now we are back. Hi, Matteo, welcome.
Hi, Oscar. Good afternoon. Thank you.
Okay, it seems everyone is back in plenary. So just to have a final wrap up of the results you've come up with in the breakout rooms, I would ask the first rapporteur of breakout room 1 to deliver on the feedback, to share with us feedback, please.
Francesca, I must say we failed on that mission of assigning a speaker, or we forgot about that, but I can do it. And please, anyone who was present in the session, feel free to add the information. So what we did was to go into detail into each one of the components of the social framework and to discuss what should be there and for whom, who is the target audience. And of course, what we came to realize and was to be expected is that it's difficult to separate the topics per components. And but I can tell you what are the key, or at least for me, what stayed more the key topics that we discussed. We discussed a lot about the need to identify the needs of the different stakeholders, and from there facilitate or give the tools, the knowledge how to interact. So for example, not at a broad level, but also has so how the social sector can interact with the academia, how academia can interact with the private sector, in this context of SHAFE. Then other things, for example, that we discussed, now it was the last point, the hands-on toolkits, that we want to create very concrete scenarios and start from there, and from there guide the user of these toolkits to the specific resources, to the specific content. So I have this algorithmic structure, as it was mentioned, to guide and to provide the knowledge for SHAFE implementation. And these are just two examples that came to my mind. It's a lot of knowledge. My head is full. If someone wants to add, Oscar, maybe my co-host, I give you the word if you want to add something.
Yeah, mainly one point was about two, let's say, levers that we have nowadays. One is energy. So some colleagues put the issue, but builders are very interested about how to overcome the energy issue. So this could be the entry point also to expand it, also touching the social component related. And the second is the capacity building, as Miriam was saying. And we discussed a lot around who could be in charge to promote that. And regarding the toolkit, for example, we discussed about let's say a dynamic and interactive tool that could have several modules, also making use of videos or podcasts or scenarios where the ones who are interested to do something on that direction could have interaction also with the broad public, as suggested by some colleagues. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your feedback. Now, breakout room number 2. Did you choose a rapporteur?
I believe number 2 was on the TOEC manual, right?
Yes.
Sure of the
manual. Yeah.
Wasn't sure about
I
that.
will be though. I will present a little bit what we discussed during the meeting. We had some, from my point of view, some difficult questions and topics, but they involved around the involvement of the stakeholders in the development of responsive environments. What are the gaps that are presenting here in this development, and what are some solutions, some technical solutions that could complement the current smart housing offers and what is currently happening. And we thought about the needs. What are the current needs, and what are some of the most pressing needs of developing responsive environments? And the majority of us decided that the economical needs are one of the most pressing, considering that this is linked especially with the social and the psychological well-being of people, the environment, and of those around us, and also how personal mental capacities and personal outlooks is impacting the ability of people to absorb technological advances that could support their well-being, basically, and how we should support and assist as much as we can this absorption of progress in of technologies to people. And we thought, okay, so what is missing? What are the technological solutions that is missing and that could complement the current smart housing offers? And we had an interesting discussion on what is the current view on digital literacy and how technology should be adapted to the needs of the groups, of the people, of different groups, of different capacities, and that the focus should be on education and on educating those people on how to use the latest technological solutions, because there are a lot, they exist, but they are not easy to use, they're not that accessible, and maybe this is what is impacting the adoption. Moreover, we discussed about how stakeholders such as the health authorities, local, regional representatives, how the social housing sector and so on, if they are represented enough in this development of responsive environments, and we all agreed that not. Because we thought then how can we convince those underrepresented stakeholders to invest in smart housing and get involved? And one solution was greater visibility and funding programs, which are currently lacking. So this is really in link. And where are the main gaps, difficulties for the developers of the responsive environments? And this is really interesting. So we had a discussion on ethical issues connected with data privacy, which I think it's an important and is linked with policymakers and the standards that currently exist. And that's all. I tried to include and make the whole questions into one thing, but yeah.
Okay, thank you. And last but not least, let's gather the feedback from the digital tools breakout room. Any volunteer here?
From my side, I was presenting the Expert Hub. I was just showing the application and solving some issues. I just want to reinforce that if you have any questions assessing the platform, please send an email to anyone in the Shines team that we will solve it. Okay. And now I think the great discussion was about the repository. So I pass the floor. Thank you.
Well, we just wanted to have some inputs from the experts on how to organize and just to know that have the feedback about which will be the best, the most appropriate entry points to this repository. We show 3 different approaches to this the entering point of the repository, which will be like first option to go to entry by the expertise of the different people who are accessing to this repository, basically asking who are you. Second option will be to enter by the scale of the initiative. It will be at European scale, national, regional, or even municipality or local level. Or a third option was to enter by the different topics that were related to the smart, healthy, age-friendly environments. And we have selected seven topics. The discussion, well, it was really relevant. Well, it was voted. We made a poll, and it showed that the first option is to enter by the topic. But we had a very interesting discussion, or yes, about if those were the appropriate kind of entry to the repository, because we had the opinion that you should be entering, if I understood correctly, according to the solutions that have to be solved. And I think that that's another really relevant discussion that we can have among all the experts, all the stakeholders that are taking part in this project. But I really don't think that we have for that entering points to this repository, we should first need to identify what are those needs. And I don't know if we have really the resources and the time to identify what are all these needs of the different stakeholders that are going to be entering into this repository to look for really good initiatives and to solve these whatever problems or that they have. So that was one of a very, very interesting discussion. We ask you to please send us your inputs after you see the presentation, because that will be probably located, I don't know where, or we will be shared. And we really want to have not only the opinion of the experts who has joined us today in our group, but all of you. So thank you very much for all your inputs in advance. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for the valuable insights you have been able to gather. And now I'll leave the floor to Professor Zallio, who has been guiding us also in the first workshop. So please, Matteo, over to you.
Thank you, Francesca, and thanks everybody for the feedback you provided so far. So I would like to share a link in the chat to the Miro board, as we used a couple of weeks ago for the brainstorming session that we ran at the end of February. And I'll let you know shortly what are we going to do today. So let me share my screen. And so I'll give you some time. Feel free to jump into the Miro board. Please write in the chat if you have any problems, any issues in accessing the board. And while you are accessing, I'll briefly introduce you with the program for today. So I'll start by sharing back some takeaways from the session that we ran in February for each of the breakout rooms. If you remember, we had 3 breakout rooms focusing on why and how the problem statement could have been unfolded and explored by each of them. So we're going to have a takeaway from a session from the breakout room 1, breakout room 2, and breakout room 3. After that, I'm going to give you some time and I'm going to ask you to go deeper and focus on 3 different problem statements, 1 per breakout room, and try to break down, try to unfold the hows that could help to answer the questions, the problem statement. I see you got a message. Okay, Lenka, thank you for letting us know. That session is going to be around, it's going to last around 15 minutes. So you will be prompted to provide feedback on the problem statement, the big blue post-it that you see here in the middle, and just provide feedback over here, down in this area of the Miro board. After that, after 15 minutes, we're going to come back into the plenary. We're going to quickly review the feedback and give you the opportunity to share more about your conversation during the breakout room. So please take some time during the breakout room to decide or to elect a representative of your group that is going to share in 2 minutes some of the findings from the breakout room. And then finally, I'll give you 5 minutes at the end to vote. Last time we used the voting session, so we used these little red dots. Every participant is able to pick one of the dots and bring it close to the post-it that you think it's more important, more valuable, or has a high priority that needs to be addressed first. In this way, we're trying to really gauge the sentiment of all of you towards what is really important, what is critical, what has to be addressed first. So are there any questions before I start sharing back a few takeaways from the session we run in February? Silence is often a good thing, sometimes not, but I take it for a yes, go ahead. So I'm gonna go and start sharing a few takeaways from workshop number 1 in February. So if you remember, during that workshop, we tried to unfold one of the biggest problem statements of this project, which was about how might we develop a capacity building framework to boost the creation of age-friendly environments. So from session 1, breakout room 1, these are some of the highlights. So the framework needs to be pragmatic and evidence-based and user-centric. We need to make sure that the work is collaboratively done, with different stakeholders and from different geographies. Sustainability and emerging technologies are critical elements of this framework, and it is important that ensuring that the framework has a long life and is more durable across the time. So these were some of the takeaways from breakout room 1. Let's see what other stakeholders shared over breakout room 2. Question was still the same. How might we develop a capacity building framework to boost the creation of age-friendly environments? So we need to develop citizens empowerment actions, working with the community, making the feedback accessible across the community, and that the voice is heard. These would boost and increase confidence and allow to create education programs, awareness raising, training, including the community and decision makers. And finally, there is a need to test solutions with pilots and case studies in smaller communities by further creating guidelines and standards. And then breakout room number 3, questions still the same. How might we develop a capacity building framework to boost the creation of age-friendly environments? And the key takeaways are: we need banks to invest in the direction of AFE, and healthy living as well, so that private sector goes into that direction as well. So awareness is a big point. We need to develop technical solutions for citizens to make them more easily understandable, and needs to be translated, those solutions, of course, into a language that can be understood by people and the population in general. Political support is needed as a driver for investments. In this field, the public administration should communicate with a multi-level approach because it's trans-regional and shrinking public welfare system, so the state supports people to trust the institutions. So this is a very short summary of the findings from last time, the previous workshop. I think there is an opportunity to read through the lines here and help you to answer the hows regarding each problem statement that we're going to have a look at it today. So just to make sure we are all on the same page, we're going to have 3 breakout rooms. People are going to join those breakout rooms, and the activity is to read the problem statement. Problem statement 1 is about how can municipalities hear the voice of citizens for the building of inclusive and responsive environments, and then provide feedback and ask yourself how these municipalities can hear the voice of citizens. Let's put down some actions. Let's put down ideas here in those post-its, in those lavender color post-its. And then after that, we come back. For breakout room 2, the statement is how to involve the construction industry, as often it remains outsider of social innovation, when building solutions for inclusive and responsive environments. Same process, focus on the house down here and write quantity over quality. Write ideas, be creative, and prompt us with your breakout room number 3. The problem statement focuses on how to integrate societal, political, and economic developments into the social innovation framework for inclusive and responsive environments. Again, same procedure, same process. Write your feedback down here and feel free to add post-its, of course. I mean, this is not a limited number of post-its, but the more we have, the better it is. So check over the title here. This board is for the breakout room number 3. This one is for breakout room number 2. And this is for breakout room number 1. So once you enter the breakout room, just make sure that you're working in the correct board. Do we have questions? Is it all clear? It sounds so. So I leave Francesca and Adele to create the breakout rooms. I'll be joining some of them and popping between all of them during the next 15 minutes. So
the rooms are ready.
Great.
And you will be randomly associated to the room, so you won't be able to choose. And if it's okay with you, Matteo, we can start. Okay.
How did the session go? I see some smiling faces. And that means probably good. Okay, well, I had the pleasure to see that every group hardly worked on the post-its, and there was a tremendous amount of post-its here. So, and I see somebody has started voting already, which is great, but no worry for who didn't vote yet. So I'm going to give 2 minutes each group to quickly summarize the few takeaways of this session. Okay, who is the group that is willing to start? Group 1, 2, or 3? Call for volunteers.
I'm happy to start from group 2.
Amazing.
Yeah, so that one, group 2, was focused on how to involve the construction industry. As often, it remains outsider of social innovation when building solutions for inclusive and responsive environments. So that's the one that we were focusing on. As you see, there's plenty of post-it notes there as well. And I guess I've been reading through them, and there are 4 main areas of input. One of them is about how to give the right tools that are evidence-based to the industry so that they can make decisions and make sure that at their fingertips they have catalogs of solutions and guidelines that can support implementation of interventions, and that these interventions are backed by proper research, and in that way agree some principles that are common across the industry and have demonstrated them through success stories, because all of these, would represent a bit of a cultural shift for the industry. The second block of suggestions that there were was more about regulation and policy as a driver of change, and how, for example, public procurement could be a driver, making it a requirement on public tenders to have these inclusive environments. And with companies now having to have more strict ESG requirements, that could also be something that would be considered as part of their ESG reporting. The third block is more about the incentives. So I just talked about the stick. There is also the carrot. So incentives for these kind of interventions, but also give evidence about the return on investment that industry can get from creating more healthy and livable spaces. And organizations like the International Well Building Institute has done very well in making that ROI visible to industry for healthy buildings, for example. And then the last block of contributions were more about engagement of user groups in design processes, raising awareness and communication, and also upskilling people and training. So that was what we have in our sea of post-it notes.
That is great. Thank you so much, Marta, for summarizing them. Who is next? Breakout room 1 or 3? Shall we try breakout room 3? Is there anybody who would like to share a quick summary?
Yeah, if you like, Matteo, we have Agnieszka and Duarte. So Agnieszka, if you want to start first. Can you hear us, Agnieszka? Maybe not. So Duarte from Academy, if you like, take over. I can integrate.
Yes, I think it was rather a difficult question. So we don't have the same sea of post-it notes as the other ones. I think the idea was that the more collaboration is needed between different institutions. And this can be done through regulations or incentives or methodologies or making frameworks. Yeah, so in essence, more an holistic approach is needed for all of these people to work together. But we don't really have any concrete results for this. Does anyone want to add something to that?
Yeah, just to underline, you see the pink post-it, the legal and regulatory framework to facilitate social innovation, because this perspective sometimes is missed. So the idea is that, for example, if we have some mandatory regulations that foresee participatory process or expanding also the social dimension could support, then we discussed about flexibility and adaptive, let's say, building. So one issue is how to make sure that the responsive environment could change along time. We have our culture and our old-fashioned way to, let's say, build constructions, but still there. So we need to change this mindset almost in investors, in policymakers, in let's say, supporting them in looking ahead to what is going on in 20, 30, 40 years in front of us. So mainly regulatory system, responsive environment, holistic approach, and changing regulation, we think could be something useful to change the situation. Thank you, Matteo.
Thanks, Oscar, and all the work from group number 3. Very briefly, group number 1.
I can say some things
Thank you.
here. We heard some great examples on how all the work starts from the community, and I agree totally with what my colleagues said. But also, so we have this: how can municipalities hear the voices of citizens? And we have an interesting example here in Cluj-Napoca, where one influential businessman complained on press, on some press, whatever, about some accessibilities of the buses. And 2 months later, we had a bus in some place that could help people move around the city more freely. So I think it's important, and I included it here, to involve influential people in expressing the issues that exist, because those cannot be hidden under the rug. Also, I included here media attention, so calling out any negative initiatives that can affect the construction of inclusive and responsive environments. So this is more of stopping something bad from happening. And also I included community building and petitions. So knocking with evidence of support, of numbers of people who agree with an objective, and showing them basically that a lot of people agree with building those environments, or doing something as little as possible in trying to create more accessible spaces, and doing this directly to them, giving it to them so they cannot ignore it. If there is anyone else who wants to add something else.
Thanks.
Maybe I could add that what we mentioned about the financial capacity and the financial means, that they are very important, and they are very scarce in many situations, at least in Greece, that could help municipalities materialize further many more initiatives and actions. So financial, both from the individual and private aspect and from the public aspect, is very important, and is probably not enough in many occasions as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Jorgos, for your feedback as well. So I'm conscious of time, we're running a bit late. So I see some people have started voting already. So I'll give you a couple of more seconds to pick up some red dots and bring it over the post-it that you think it's very important, very critical, or even just very useful to help address the question. So I'll give you about a minute to do this activity. Of course, people from breakout room 1 focus on room number 1, and people from breakout room number 2 will focus on their post-its, and so on. So once we've done that, I think the session is over. So I'm starting to thanks a lot Isra and all the members of the core team for the support, all of you for the feedback and for the conversation. And this feedback is really important for the next phases, for the future workshops. So the voting is really critical for us to prioritize the house and then move forward to the next workshop. So I'll leave you a few more seconds for voting. Yes. Some post-its are popping up, and then I think we can run the closing remarks, and that's it.
Yeah, and please, all of you remember that the next Expert Hub will be held on June 16th. It is Friday from 2 up to 4 p.m. Central European time. So please save the date. You will gather a specific email, but just to save in advance. Thank you, Matteo.
Thank you, Oscar, and thank you, everybody, for your contribution. Well, I hope you have a good Friday afternoon and a great weekend, and I look forward to see you on the next call.